YouTube? This is Steve from Average Joe's Fantasy Football, and we are in the final week of the regular season for fantasy football, week 14. Now, we are talking start and sit videos for the quarterback position. If you haven't already, check out our waiver wire video. Of course, there have been injuries that have happened, and there are two teams that are by. You've got the Cardinals and Commanders to take account for. Hopefully you guys had a victory off that Monday night game. There's some great play there, so hopefully you guys did finish off with a win. And you're either locked in for the playoffs, fighting for that last spot, or you're fighting for a seeding position in the fantasy playoffs. And hopefully this video helps you guys out. Now, these are your obvious starts at the quarterback position. I've got a pretty long list here because these quarterbacks should be in your lineup just because that's either a great matchup or they've been playing really, really well. Now, the first quarterback I'm going to recommend is going to be Justin Fields versus the Lions. Last outing, Fields had a great game. He put up over 100 yards on the ground, 21 fantasy points, and a passing touchdown. Lions are allowing an average of 21.7 points the last 4 games. So again, why not expect the same thing out of this one for Fields? Fields has done a great job against the Lions. Any of the rivalry games have always been something like that. Fields, I don't expect will have 100 yards on the ground again, but I do think he's got a great connection with DJ Moore. Komet should have some say in this game as well. I think he's going to get a nice little touchdown near the red zone. But again, this is a great matchup for him. Lions are allowing 9 touchdowns in the past 4 games. So this is going to be a game where I think Fields can get at least 2 touchdowns in this one. I think he's going to be effective in the ground and the air. I like Fields a lot. Another quarterback I like, Russell Wilson versus the Chargers. Russell currently is quarterback 13 in fantasy at this current moment. A huge difference compared to where he was last season. I think part of it is the Sean Payton aspect, even though I still think it wasn't as big of a deal as I think most people did. I think his improvement has really been on the defensive side in their winning streak, even though they just lost. And I think a lot of it's just the, continuity with him and Sutton and Judy and just getting this offense really under his belt and kind of getting a lot closer to his teammates. I know there's always what happened last year was a lot of attention towards him, but I think he's kind of finally turned it around. With that said, look, Chargers aren't great. They're allowing over 290 yards in the air, 19.2 points to the quarterback. It's going to be a great matchup for Russell Wilson. He's playing very, very well. He's not turning over a lot. He's got 21 touchdowns so far with only 7 interceptions. Great matchup. I think you'll get close to that 19-point range. I think it's going to be a shootout. I think the Chargers will do better. I do think Denver's defense is definitely a challenge for them. I think Patriots, obviously, you can see what they did against Justin Herbert. And it's just a Bill Belichick thing. His defense always tends to show up. But I do like this one as a good matchup for Russell Wilson. Another quarterback I like, Jordan Love versus the Giants. Man, has Jordan Love been on a hot streak as of late. Thanksgiving game, blew it up. Sunday night game against the Chiefs, blew it up. Like, he's been amazing. 2 games in a row of over 20 fantasy points. I think it continues this week. Look, Giants aren't great. Defensively, they've played horribly. But a lot of it, I will say, if you look at the stats, they're not giving up a huge amount of points to the quarterback position. But a lot of it has to do with the fact that they're behind in most games, right? So people are running down their throats because they're up big. I do think this game gets a little bit closer. I think DeVito's done a pretty good job of trying to keep this game close in most games. One thing the Giants have done is they're fighting, right? They're fighting as best as they can, even though I think realistically you should be tanking. I don't want a team to actually really tank, but come on. What are you going to do with this team at the current point? But I do think Jordan Love has a great game. I don't think he's going to hit that 20-point mark. I do think he's going to finish closer to that 16 to 18-point mark. I think he's going to finish as a low-end QB1 this week. But I do like him a lot. I think his streak continues. And I'm hoping Christian Watson does play, which only helps Jordan Love out. Now, the first quarterback I'm going to sit this week, CJ Stroud versus the Jets. And I may look like a fool recommending CJ Stroud as a sit. He has played phenomenally. And I love CJ Stroud. I talked him up all off season. I have him in a lot of my dynasty leagues. But Jets have actually done a really good job against the quarterback. And I get it. They've had some games where they've let up. They've let people score. But they've also performed really well against even top tier quarterbacks like CJ Stroud has played. The biggest thing that I take away from this is the Jets have allowed or have created at least a turnover in each of the last 4 games. They're also only allowing 192 yards in the air. and Stroud just lost his best weapon in Tank Dell. Now, Nico Collins played fantastic. Like, he played amazing. Noah Brown has to show up. They didn't have Dalton Schultz, but Brevin Jordan did a pretty good job. And of course, both running backs actually showed up really well, especially Dameon Pierce, who I thought was going to lose his job, but they are starting to implement him again, and he's showing up with that confidence. But this is a matchup I'm a little nervous for CJ Stroud. I think he's going to do okay. I think he's going to throw a turnover. I do think he throws a touchdown. I think he's going to be in that 14 to 15 point range. Really low. Like, if you're in maybe a 2 QB league, a QB2 position, but other than that, a really low QB1, like outside of the top 12. Now, another quarterback I'm going to sit, Geno Smith versus the 49ers. Last outing, the 49ers put up a nice little stinker against Geno put up a little stinker against the 49ers, only 8.3 points. Geno did a great job against Dallas Cowboys, who are a good defensive team. Dallas' defense did not show up very well, and Geno looked amazing. He played really well. I don't think this is going to happen against the 49ers. 49ers just put up a great game against the Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. Now, Jalen Hurts did have a great game in fantasy, right? He had his rushing touchdown. He did play very well. He was clean, didn't throw any turnovers. So he had a great game. I don't think Geno's going to do as well as Jalen Hurts. He is not as talented as Jalen Hurts or as good. Geno, unfortunately, I think is going to be in that 12-point range, maybe 11 points in this matchup, because again, the 49ers defense is great. This is a rivalry game. They both know each other really well. And ever since the 49ers got Chase Young, I know that isn't talked up enough, but that made a huge difference for this defense. They look great. They're playing well. Again, Geno, I'm sitting you on this week. Another quarterback is Baker Mayfield. I'm sitting versus the Falcons. Falcons in the last 3 games have only allowed 11.7 points in fantasy. Baker in those last 3 games have only averaged 12.1 points. In the 3 games that the Falcons have played, they've also not allowed a passing touchdown, and they're holding quarterbacks to only 221 yards in the air. Baker unfortunately has thrown 4 interceptions in each of the last 4 games, which is horrible for Baker. Now, he does have some weapons with Evans, obviously still Godwin, who has not really shown up very well, Cade Otton, who didn't show up last week as well, and Rashad White, who has actually done a really good job. But even with those players there, I think Baker's going to struggle. I think he throws at least 2 interceptions. I know that sounds crazy, but I do think he's going to throw 2 interceptions in this game. I think he's going to lay a dud, maybe 10 to 11 points this week. Now, my sleeper of the week is going to be Gardner Minshew versus the Bengals. Minshew has actually done a really good job. He had a great game this past weekend. He had over his third 300-yard passing game. He had a couple touchdowns and 0 turnovers. Like, that's what you're hoping for out of Minshew. He's got great weapons at Michael Pittman. Josh Downs is there. Alec Pierce had a great game for the first time. And this is all with Jonathan Taylor not being in there due to his injury with Zach Moss back. Now, Zach Moss didn't have the game we had hoped he would, but I just still think he's got some value and he's still going to have a good performance this upcoming season with the rest of the games that JT may miss. With that said, Bengals aren't a great defensive team. They're second, the worst against total yards in general. They're about average when it comes to stopping the pass as well. I do think this is going to be a tough matchup. I think realistically, I think Minshew is going to be in that low QB1. I think he's going to get into maybe, I'm seeing him at the QB9, QB10 spot this week because I don't think he's going to get 300 yards. I think he's going to get that 260 to 280 yard range and a couple touchdowns and 0 turnovers. So those are my start, sits, and sleepers for the quarterback position for week 14. If you guys do have questions for your lineup, hit us up in the comments down below. Make sure you guys smash the subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the like button as well. Check out our other waiver wire video. It might help you out with any injuries or anything else you guys might be dealing with. If you guys are still doing trades, maybe you're in a dynasty league, let us know. We'd love to help you guys out with those trade questions. Again, hit the notification bell as well when you subscribe. Check out other starts and videos when they drop this week, and I'll check you guys out next time.